Chapter 24 The 12th Worm. You think Alan really meant it when he said he'd given up? Asked Billy, turning down the flame under the frying pan. He was cooking a toasted cheese and worm sandwich. I don't know, said Tom, looking in the refrigerator. I suppose so. He asked us to the Mets game. Say, is that chocolate pudding? Yeah, but don't take any. It's for supper. I could have just scraped some off the top, and then you could tell your mother it fell out upside down on the floor by mistake while you were getting the cheese out. So you scraped the dirty part off into the garbage. Well, said Billy doubtfully. Thomas Grouse, said Billy's mother, coming in from the hall. I'm surprised at you. Oh, Mrs. Forrester, I wouldn't really have done it. I was just, talking. Everybody talks. My father, Billy's father, Billy, my sisters, Annie, Charlotte, Polly. He was backing toward the door. Betty, Agnes, Columbus. I didn't know you had a sister named Columbus, Tom, said Billy's mother. Would you like some chocolate ice cream instead? Oh, sure, Mrs. Forrester, said Tom, relieved. He sat down at the table. It's my cousin who's named Columbus. He grinned. Columbus, Ohio. He's a capital fellow, Mrs. Forrester. And then he had to grab the edge of the table to keep from rolling off his chair, laughing at his own joke. Billy looked disgusted. His mother opened the refrigerator, shaking her head. Chapter 25 Pearl Harbor. The car slid quietly to a stop under the street light outside Billy's house. Shh, whispered Alan to his father. Billy's asleep. His father glanced back at Billy, snoring peacefully in the back seat, his plump cheeks sticky with orange soda. Alan, run up to the house and tell them I'm bringing Billy in. Billy's father met them at the front door, and taking Billy, whispered his things. Alan and his father went down the walk. Behind them, the porch light clicked off. In the back seat of the car, Joe and Alan wrestled gleefully. We did it! We've won! He will never wake up now. Alan struggled out of Joe's grip and asked his father what time it was. Late, almost midnight, I think. Joe pulled Alan's head down and tried to sit on it. He couldn't do it now even if he woke up. How could he find and cook and eat a worm in the dark? We've won! We've won! Chapter 26 Guadalcanal. But slumped on the bathroom stool, his mother holding up his chin while she washed his face, Billy was waking. Hold still, dear. Did you have a good time? You're certainly home late. Is this part of winning the bet? Billy's eyes blinked sleepily. He had a gnawing feeling he had forgotten something. He hiccuped, gazing doubtfully down at the fudge blue bath mat. Yawned. He'd remember in the morning. It couldn't be that bat? Bat? He hadn't won yet. There were still 3 to go. 15 worms in 15 days. Today was... He jumped up. Mom, I haven't eaten my worm today. And suddenly it all came to him. The whole trip, all the candy bars, hot dogs, hamburgers, popcorn. What time is it, Mom? Quick! About 11:45. It was a trick. He snatched his pants off from the floor. They were trying to make me forget. He tumbled and slid downstairs through the dining room, his shirt tail flying, yanked up on the drawer in the kitchen table. Snatched out the flashlight, the drawer spilling out with a clatter and crash onto the floor, and slammed out the back door. The Finks! He scurried across the backfield toward Tom's house, searching the ground with a flashlight as he went. There! Darn, a stick! Geez, suppose I can't find one. He stopped. There won't be time to cook it, he ran on. And no ketchup, he stopped. I'll bet Tom wasn't sick at all. He ran on. The night was moonless and close. He paused to heave over a rotten log in the high, dewy grass, mealybugs and scooters, clambered over the stone wall into Tom's backyard, and was all of a sudden wrestling with the pop tent. Muffled grunts and threshings. Tom! He yelled. Tom, it's me, Billy. They're trying to trick us. Tom and his younger brother Pete crawled out from under the pop tent. It was a trick, panted Billy. Alan and Joe were trying to make me forget. 15 worms in 15 days. If I don't eat one in the next 10 minutes, Alan will say he won. It's almost midnight. And they left me home so I wouldn't remind you. Billy nodded. Have you got a worm? We'll have to find one. Tom dug back into the pup tent and came up with 2 flashlights. They zigzagged back and forth across the lawn, bent over, searching. I got one, cried Pete. Shh! I'll have to eat it raw, said Billy. He threw back his head. Wait, whispered Tom, grabbing his arm. You should do it where Alan and Joe can see you. Pete, run and get your siren out of the garage. Chapter 27. The 13th Worm. Under the streetlight in front of Alan's house, Tom and Pete knelt over the siren. Billy stood beside them, the nightcrawler squirming in his fingers. Now wait till lots of lights come on all over, in all the houses, said Tom. Then chomp it down. Ready, Pete? Now. The siren growled, winding slowly up and up until it screeched across the sleeping neighborhood, sending birds squawking and chirping into the air from trees and rooftops. Dogs began to bark. Windows lit up. There were confused shouts, bangs of windows slamming up. Ladies and gentlemen, shouted Tom through the dying whine of the siren, Alan Phelps and Joseph O'Hara, through their finkiness and cheating, their lies and dirty. Come on, muttered Billy, his head thrown back, dangling the worm over his open mouth. We haven't got much time. Alan Phelps and Joseph O'Hara, shouted Tom, have forced us to wake you all up so that you may now witness ta-ra-ta-ta-ra-ta-ta-ra-ta-ta-ta, the eating of the 13th worm. He dropped to his knees. The siren wound slowly up to a screech. Billy dropped the crawler into his mouth and chewed furiously. His eyes closed, fell to his knees. Still chewing, his face turning bit red, toppled over on his side, still chewing, rolled and writhed about the sidewalk, clutching his stomach, still chewing. Tom and Pete, kneeling by the streetlight, working the screaming siren. Billy threw open his arms and lay still on his back under the glare of the streetlight, his mouth wide open. Ta-ra! Announced Tom, springing up, pointing to Billy. The 3 boys ran off into the darkness. As they went, Tom yelled, Remember, Alan Phelps and Joseph O'Hara. Chapter 28. Hello, we are. A confused murmur arose up and down the street. Suddenly a boy shouted from the Phelps house. Things! Alan's father dragged him back from the window. Is that why you were stuffing Billy with candy and junk all day? Leave me alone. Yeah, we're trying to trick him. The things, he yelled at the top of his voice, lunging toward the window. Quiet, his father set him down hard in a chair. Joe peered furtively out through the fringe of the bedspread. As soon as he had heard the siren and Tom's yells, he had crawled under the bed. And that's why Billy walked the whole neighborhood up, to show you he hadn't been tricked? Yes. His father let go of Alan's pajama collar. In the doorway, Alan's mother threw up her hands and went off to the bathroom to take 2 aspirin. The next day, Alan and Joe tramped from house to house in the neighborhood, knocking on each door and then reciting in chorus, Hello, we're Alan Phelps and Joseph O'Hara. We're the reason you were waked up in the middle of the night last night, and we're sorry. Breath. You'll be happy to know our parents have punished us. We can't look at television or have any dessert for a month, and our allowances have been taken away for 2 weeks. We promise that it will never happen again. At least not in this neighborhood, muttered Joe as the last door closed behind them. And Alan, said his father at dinner that night, I don't want to hear that there has been any repetition of this incident at Billy's or Tom's house or anywhere else. Do you understand that? But we can't let them get away with it, Mr. Phelps called Joe from the living room, where he was waiting for Alan to finish dinner. There will be no repetition of this incident or anything like it, repeated Mr. Phelps. You tried to trick Billy and lost. That will be the end of the matter. Chapter 29. You know what you are, said Alan, his nose almost touching Billy's. You are a fink, and you are another, sneered Billy through clenched teeth. And a cheating, lying, dirty, snot-nosed, cheating, lying one. If you say 2 more words, said Alan, you know what? I'll beat your head in. Billy breathed hard. I'm right behind you, muttered Tom, peering grimly over Billy's shoulder, his fists clenched. Yeah? Said Joe from behind Alan. So what? We can lick both of you with our hands tied behind our backs and paperbacks over our heads. You couldn't lick a flea. Yeah? Yeah. Spiffle, whack, thump. Someone's choking, no fair. Thwomp, gouge. Joe crawled off behind the tree, nose bleeding. Whomp. His pulling hair, his scratching. Twist, twist. Alan crawled, whipping behind the bush. Thump, whack, donk. Billy, it's just you and me. Where's the others? Tom and Billy untangled and sat up, bruised, scratched, dusty shirts torn, hair tousled. Tom's nose bleeding. Billy's shoe had come off. Yeah, says Alan and Joe from behind the tree. Billy started to shake his fist at them and clamber up, but then sank back. Tom panted beside him, bleary-eyed. Yeah, all worn out? Can't find any more? Alan scooped up a handful of mud and flung it at Tom and Billy. Then Joe did the same. Billy and Tom scrambled up and pelted back. Mud splattered against trees and bushes. Alan began to cry. A rock hit Billy over the eye. He sat down backward in the mud, covering his head with his arms, sobbing. Joe and Tom stopped throwing. Joe grabbed Alan. Come on. Tom knelt beside Billy. Let me see, Billy. Is it bad? Take your arms away so I can see. He tried to pull Billy's arm apart. Billy wrenched away. Come on, said Tom in a scared voice. I'll take you home. Come on, your mother can take you to the doctor. Chapter 30. The Peace Treaty. Alan and Joe sat on the sofa, Tom and Billy on 2 straight chairs opposite them. Now, said Alan's father, what's this all about? The 4 boys all began talking at once, accusing, recounting, explaining. All right, said Alan's father after a while. That's enough. Now we know it's got something to do with this bet Alan and Billy made, but Mr. O'Hara and I aren't going to get involved in that. You'll have to settle that among yourselves. You 4 boys have been friends too long to start fighting now, said Mr. O'Hara. You really hurt each other. Look at yourselves. Your face is all bruised and muddy. Talk it over, work things out, and then you can shake and be friends again. Joe muttered under his breath. I couldn't be friends with those brats. We'll be out in the kitchen, said Alan's father. When you've settled it, call us, and we'll all go down to Friendly's for some ice cream, okay? Billy and Alan and Tom nodded. The 2 fathers left the room. The boys gazed silently at each other. After a while, Alan said, It wasn't us that scratched Tom. Billy did it. Another silence. Did you have stitches? Billy asked Alan. Nah, did you? Billy shook his head. More silence. You tried to cheat, said Billy. That wasn't cheating. We were just trying to trick you. Yeah, but before that, when you glued the 2 worms together, that was cheating. You would have cheated too if you'd been losing. Billy thought about it. Okay, but look, no more cheating. I've already eaten 13 worms. You know I can eat 2 more. Heck, if I buy George Cunningham's brother's mini bike, we can all use it. We'll all have fun with it. Joe and Alan glanced at each other. Okay, said Joe. You win. He wins, Alan. Yeah, but what's the use, said Joe. We've tried everything. I'm sick of it. Geez, we've done nothing else for almost 2 weeks. Alan scratched his eyebrow, glancing at Joe. Yeah, but... Joe stood up. Come on, at least we'll get a milkshake out of it. Chapter 31. The Letter. Billy lifted a worm out of the frying pan with the cooking tongs and curled it back and forth on his peanut butter sandwich. I bet they try something, he said. Joe won't give up. Alan might, but Joe won't. Tom was carving his initials in the leg of the kitchen table. Yeah, but it's not, Joe spat. What does he care? Just the same, I bet he'd try something. Billy sat down at the table, turning the sandwich this way and that, looking for the best spot to take the first bite. Emily came in from the dining room. You and Mom got a letter. Chewing, Billy opened it. Dear Mrs. Forrester, I have just made a distressing discovery. Through a medical journal before going up to bed, I noticed an article entitled Poisons in the Home Garden, a subject which necessarily fascinates me. As I glanced through the article, a phrase caught my eye. Lumbricus terrestris, the common earthworm. I read on. Mrs. Forrester, let me assure you, first of all, that there is no cause for undue alarm. However, you will, I'm sure, be concerned to learn that, especially in the months of July and August, parents must beware of the common earthworm, some varieties of which are known to secrete a substance, Lumbricus cryopsis, which, though not malignant to the skin, is sometimes harmful if swallowed. Dr. A.C. Roosevelt of Hyde Park, New York, reports that 10% of boys studied reported no ill effects, except induced paralysis of the lower fulmar region. 40% reported abdominal cramping, triple vision, lasting from 2 to 3 years, and impairing school performance, and extreme lassitude. Autopsy reports have not yet been received on the remaining 50%, and so no final conclusions can be drawn. But extreme caution is urged since the blackened and pimply faces of the subject lead one to suspect the worst. Mrs. Forrester, as your friend and family physician, I would strongly recommend that your son William eat no more worms until I return on Thursday from New York City, and can give him a thorough examination. Yours sincerely, C.M. McGrath, M.D. Chapter 32. Croak. His hand trembling, Billy laid the peanut butter and fried worm sandwich down on the table. Do you think... Wow, whispered Tom. The screen door banged. Billy's father came into the kitchen, his tie loosened, his jacket over his arm. He laid his briefcase on the table. It's hot, he said cheerfully. Billy staggered to the sink and feebly drew himself a glass of water. Tom and Emily watched him, awestruck. What's the matter? Asked Billy's father. Water dribbled down Billy's chin and onto his t-shirt as he drank. His mind swam. Poison? Paralysis? Extreme lassitude? Tom, said Billy's father, what's going on? Tom pointed at the letter lying on the table. Billy's father read it, smiled, glanced at Billy, and getting a beer out of the refrigerator, sat down at the table. Well, he said to Billy, so it fooled you, huh? Fooled me? Croaked Billy.